Morning, everybody. It's Mike Castleneck. Thanks for being on today. I know that some of you have maybe getting started a little bit slower today because of the Super Bowl yesterday. Hopefully your team won. Mine did, so that's good. So what we normally do is open the lines up. There's people have got questions, people have got concerns, people want to share some stories of things that have gone well. This is your time to do it. And, we always hear the guys that are on here tell us afterwards that this is the best. Missy and I were talking. When we hear the guy that's on this my sounding board for the day, they'll always say, yeah, this is the best call ever. And guys, why do you think that they say this is the best call they've ever been on? Because they were the ones that were participating on the call. You get a lot more out of it when you actually raise your hand and say, yeah, I'll be the sounding board for the hour. But I think everybody gets a lot more out of it. But don't shy away. This is a great time to get on and really sharpen your skills. And we're not going to put you on the spot. We're just going to use you as an opinion leader for the rest of the group. So, Missy, if anybody would raise their hands and that would volunteer to be on, and also raise your hand if you have questions, concerns, or want to share some positive news, that would be well appreciated. So do we have anybody raising their hands yet, Missy, or willing to do that?
I've got Ed has a question that he'd like to ask, so I opened him up.
Oh, super. Hi, Ed.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Perfectly.
Good. Question about seminars in two different aspects.
Okay.
One, the first question about when you do mass mail seminars.
Yeah.
Second question is when you do client event seminars, not socials, but seminars.
Okay.
Okay. Question is when you're doing a client seminar, hence the State of the Union address, beginning 2012, which is something we just got through doing.
Yep.
And it's clients bringing a guest.
Yes.
And some of the clients bring guests and some of the clients don't. You know how that works.
Yeah.
The question is, do we hang around and socialize after the seminar? Because this is how I've always done seminars, and this is the way I like it, is I'll do the presentation first, and then everyone eats afterwards, and that way they get the information. No one's talking over the clunking of the food and everything else like that. The question is on the clients, do you hang around and socialize afterwards?
Absolutely. If you did not do that, it would be a waste of your time, money, and everything else. So absolutely you are right to stay around and socialize. You should stay there until basically everybody is the last person is left.
Okay. And now the way we do it on the mass mail, people that we don't do, is I actually pack up and leave afterwards.
Well,
I do not hang around and socialize because I want them coming into the office for the questions that they have. Where if I'm just hanging around and just standing around going, hey, I'll answer any questions and socializing.
Well, there's a huge difference between saying I'll answer any questions, because you never want to answer questions there. But I have two opinions. I used to say to do what you do. I used to say, what you do is you want to relay an image of that you don't have time, that you were here to give them at this time, but you don't have time, you want to leave. And we used to do that, but we have found, and I was corrected by actually people in the field, and they were actually getting easily, what would you say, Jeff, what were we hearing, like 50% more appointments by actually working the room afterwards with their calendar. Now, when they were doing that, they were not answering questions, because anybody asks you questions, they say, listen, in this type of public forum, I really don't want to get into one-on-one questions because it's just first of all, it ties me up too long, to be honest with you. I can't get to everybody. And second of all, I really am not comfortable talking about personal issues in a group-type setting. So, you could really push it out. You don't really get in, and I've never really had a problem with a lot of guys getting tons of one-on-one questions.
I apologize. Yes, we go around working the room with my calendar.
Okay, with you there.
Yes. I squat down below them.
Yep.
And hi, how you doing? And by the way, Kelly, David, you need come over here and make sure Mr. and Mrs. Jones gets on my calendar. Yada. But I'm talking about because you work the room
Yep.
You have 20 people in there or whatever.
Yeah.
You work in the room. It only takes you maybe 30 minutes max.
Oh,
But people are still eating. You don't. I mean,
No.
you don't hang around and socialize and everything else after that, do you?
no. After you've worked the room once to get your appointments, then you can leave.
Okay.
Yep.
But with the client events, you do hang around.
I would stay for till ever.
Okay. So
Yep.
I thought. I just wanted to confirm and make sure.
Yep, I would do it the exact way you're doing it.
Okay.
Yep.
That was my question.
Excellent. Thank you. So, Ed, would you be willing to be Jeff's sounding board as he goes through the Social Security portion of this?
As always.
Okay,
I get
thank
more
you.
of it doing it that way.
And actually, before we start with that,
Yes.
Mickey has a question that I think is actually going to play in pretty well with our topic. So
Super.
go ahead, Mickey. I opened up your line.
Okay, thanks. Actually, I have two questions.
Super.
First one, although I see it looks like it probably will, what you're going to talk about is I've been trying to determine online where I can find the information about the Social Security information that we discussed in the PowerPoint, and I don't
Okay.
see it online unless I'm not looking in the right spot.
Yeah, we'll talk about that today. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I'll give you some sources and some places to go, Mickey.
Okay, second question. In the All-Pro response system, or the people they use, and one of the question answers is, if they ask, what is the meeting about, the answer, their generic answer, it's about retirement planning. Is that the appropriate response for this workshop?
Missy, how does that work exactly?
Well, they can customize whatever
Okay.
they want. So
We can go in
yeah.
and change it, but
Okay.
you know,
Then
we had discussion. We had the discussion before, Mike, and you said
Yeah.
leave it as is. But I went and had a look at it. I thought a lot of things were just not quite on mark with what we're doing here.
I'll go revisit that, Mickey, and take a look at it, and then I'll get something out to everybody. But it's been working perfectly, so that's why I said I wouldn't really change it. But yeah, I think we could probably dial it in a little bit closer to what we're doing. So let me go take a look at that, and then we'll roll it out for everybody.
All right, good.
And then, Mickey, will you stay on with Ed and
Sure.
Jeff? Super. So Jeff is the person I always turn to for the more technical type things on the system, one of those being the Social Security planning. So I asked him if he'd be on today and kind of walk through Social Security plannings and how we do it and how we approach it and the tools we have and resources you have so that you can really leverage that part of your practice. It's become more vogue for advisors to do it, but still I'd say 1 in 10 advisors have any knowledge whatsoever on Social Security planning. And guys, this is free money, so if you can help them out, you're really going to set yourself up from other advisors. So with that said, I'm going to turn the meeting over to Jeff.
Yeah, and thanks, Mike. We're going to talk a little bit about Social Security and the kind of planning that you can do, and then we're going to kind of ask ourselves the question at the end, is this going to help us make money? So does Social Security planning actually lead to anything that we do that will actually make us money? You know, a lot of people, I always start these kinds of discussions, especially these introductory discussions with, you're always going to see a lot of people, especially if you're working with that near retired or retired group, where they're asking themselves the question, well, how can I retire successfully, or more importantly, when can I retire? You're going to see a lot of people come in and say, you know, I'm close to retirement, I'm at retirement, and we're wondering, how do we make it work? Is now a good time to retire? What do we have to do to be able to retire and keep the lifestyle that we kind of imagine for ourselves in retirement? And guys, would you agree that it's kind of a do-it-yourself retirement world? I mean, when I say that, what I kind of mean by that is the number of companies that are offering pensions has gone way down over the years. And as a result, we kind of live in a world where people are forced to kind of be in defined contribution plans. They don't have defined benefit plans anymore. Defined contribution plans kind of rule the day. And so what that means is you have to save for your own retirement. And as people retire, they start to ask themselves, well, where will my income come from? And so we all kind of know that conventional three-legged stool. What is that three-legged stool that we always kind of refer to? Where will people's retirement income come from?
Social Security.
Yep, Social Security is one. Another is pension. And then we've also told people
401k.
your savings and your investment, whatever you've been able to sock away from retirement, as well as your Social Security, that's that three-legged stool. Your pension, your savings and investment, and whatever you can get from Social Security. But like we talked about, fewer and fewer people have pensions. So people are relying a lot more on their savings and their Social Security. And do you think it comes as a surprise to most people that they're going to have to be increasingly self-reliant, responsible for themselves in retirement? I mean, I don't really think so. And I think that's why income planning has become such a big deal in the last few years. And, you know, I see it all the time with the guys that we coach and the guys that we work with. We're in an environment of low caps. And yet the advisors that we coach really don't have any problem selling lots of annuities because of the income riders. Now, people aren't really fazed by the caps, and that's because they're not really buying these products because they're looking for that kind of growth. What they really want, and what people are increasingly concerned about because they have to rely more on themselves, is income. So when we work with income riders and make that part of the planning process, we really help people create a steady kind of guaranteed income with their savings. But what if there were also a way that we could help people increase their monthly Social Security by up to 60%? And that's a lot. And guys, to put that in perspective, if someone was expecting $1,000 per month from Social Security, a 60% increase could turn that into $1,600 per month. And I know this seems like kind of a weird question, but would that make a difference? I mean, would that get
in a lot of people?
Yeah, well, you're right. It would make a big difference to a lot of people. And that's typically the answer that I get. Let me ask you this. What if they had good assets and they didn't need the extra $600 per month? Would they still want it?
Of course.
Yeah. I mean, that's a lot. We're not talking about increasing somebody's check by $25 or $50 a month. We're talking about a lot. I mean, if we were talking about a $2,000 per month benefit, which wouldn't be unusual, we could be talking about an extra $1,200 a month. And even people who have good assets and who have good savings and have decent incomes are looking to get an extra $600, $1,200 per month. They would want that. Well, there are actually two ways that you can increase someone's monthly Social Security check by that much. And one of the ways and one of the strategies is called claim and suspend. And then a second way and a second strategy is called claim now, claim more later. So naturally the questions come up, well, who are these strategies for and where did they come from and kind of how do they work? So we're going to talk about all those things. We're going to talk about who they're for, where they came from, and more importantly, how they work. So let's just kind of start with who are they for? Well, they're really, and this is important, for married couples, which is to say they don't work for single people. Now, there is an exception to that. If someone is divorced, but the previous marriage lasted 10 or more years, there are things that you can still do with these strategies. But by and large, these strategies don't apply to single people. But in a way, that's okay. Now let me kind of throw this out there as a question since I have you guys as a sounding board. From our perspective as advisors, why is that generally okay that they don't really work for single people?
I'd rather work with married couples.
Yeah, I mean, like you talked about, both Ed and Mickey, we don't have a lot of success with single people. And we talked about last week, Mike, talked about the fact that we generally filter them out at the agreement meeting anyway. So that really isn't an obstacle or a barrier for us. We're really looking for people to come in with their spouse, and do some planning. That's the people that we have the most success with. That's the people we're really actively marketing to bring in, and that's the people that these kinds of strategies apply to. So we're looking for married couples. Now there is another caveat. We're looking for married couples who have yet to file or yet to claim Social Security. Now you used to be able to file for Social Security, and then you had an unlimited amount of time to change your mind. So let's say you filed, and after 5 years you realize, hey, there's some strategies that could really boost my Social Security by a lot. I'm going to go ahead and take advantage of those. You used to be able to do that. But Social Security has kind of changed the rules over the last 2 years so that you can still change your mind. If you've already filed and you've already claimed and you decide that, you know what, there's a better way for me to file and a better way for me to claim, you can still change your mind, but you only have 12 months to do it. So you can kind of try on your Social Security check and kind of think it over and mull it through and change your mind, but you only have 12 months to do that. So we're looking for married couples, and ideally we're looking for people who have yet to file or maybe only recently filed. Now in this month's investment news, there was an article that explains that using the claim now and claim more later strategy, one of the strategies that we're going to look at here in just a second, added an immediate $9,600 per year to a typical couple's Social Security income. So we're not talking chump change. We're talking good money. And that was in investment news. And here's the best part. The article said this: last summer, Social Security Timing, a web-based advice tool, surveyed more than 500 married couples between 60 and 66 regarding their knowledge of Social Security claiming strategies. And although 27% knew that the size of their monthly benefit was based on the age when they begin collecting, more than 70% weren't aware of the unusual claiming strategies such as the claim now and claim more later strategy described above. So guys, what's the best way to get clients age 60 to 66? Introduce them to these strategies because they don't know about them. They are completely unaware that these kinds of things are possible or that they exist. And here's the best part. Even though they don't know about these strategies and even though they don't know they exist, whenever it comes to time to start collecting Social Security, everyone, and I mean everyone, has questions. How do I file? When do I file? How much can I expect to receive? You know, my mom just retired a year ago, and she knows what I do. And you know, she only came to me for advice and questions about one thing. Guess what that one thing was? She didn't want to know, what do I do with my money? What should I do with my investments? What do you think about the economy going forward? What should I be mindful of in retirement? What's the one thing she wanted to know?
When should I start taking Social Security?
Yeah, Jeff, do you know how Social Security works? Because I have to go down there, and I have to think about filing, and I have a lot of questions, and I'm hoping you can kind of help me out, because I don't even know what to ask.
And Jeff, can I jump in?
Sure.
Yeah, and guys, this is the very reason in the new experience presentation that Jeff and I put together that only two financial things that are even mentioned in there, one is Social Security and one is income planning. So, I mean, and people make appointments like you wouldn't believe at these presentations because, at this new one that we've developed, because that's what they want to know about. I mean, if you think about it, financially, what's the number one thing that people are worried about financially? It's not the number one thing that people are worried about in life, but financially, what's the number one thing people are worried about? What do you think it is?
Income.
Yeah, running out of money, income. Mm-hmm. So what do both of these things have to do with income? So security planning and the software, the sales software, those are the only two financial things that are mentioned, and people make appointments in droves just for those two things. So you really need to talk about what people are worried about, and it's not rates of return. You think it'd be rates of return? It's not. That's well down the list of what people are worried about. income, 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 and Social Security planning is a huge part of it, and you need to be one of those 1 in 10 that are experts on that. So sorry, Jeff, I want to jump in and just point out that that's where we're going with all of our presentations and our marketing.
Yeah, because, oh, go ahead, Missy.
I was just going to say, and Jeff, before we go too far too, Glenn had a question regarding the claim and suspend, that he's under the impression that claim and suspend has been done away with, and so I just opened up his phone line too.
Well, Glenn, if that's your question, I can tell you claim and suspend has not gone away. There is a strategy that did go away. There used to be three. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm probably getting confused with it.
Yeah, there were 3 strategies. One strategy was called claim and suspend. Another strategy was called claim now and claim more later. Those are the 2 that are still around, and those are the 2 we're going to talk about today. Mm-hmm. There was a third strategy, and it was called, a lot of people called it the free loan strategy. What free loan was the idea that you could take Social Security and then you might change your mind. You might have collected for 3 or 4 years and decided, you know, it was a mistake to claim when I did, or it was a mistake to claim the way that I did. I've since learned about some new ways that I could really boost my Social Security, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to repay all my benefits interest-free. That's why it was called free loan.
Right.
And then I'll refile for the new higher benefits. But Social Security said, no, we're not going to allow people to do that anymore. You can't change your mind anytime you want. Now, we will allow people to change their mind, but only in the first 12 months.
Right, okay.
So free loan has gone away. But claim and suspend and claim now and claim more later, they're still alive and well. And we'll talk about why those probably can never go away the way that free loan did. But guys, Social Security, that's a big decision. Why? Well, it's because Social Security is a big part of most people's retirements. On average, 40% of someone's retirement income comes from Social Security by most estimates. And when to claim Social Security can have a bigger impact on your retirement well-being than how much you save. I mean, I'm going to say that again. When you claim Social Security makes a bigger difference in your retirement than even how much money you save. Not sure that's true? Well, consider this. T. Rowe Price did a study. And so they started by asking themselves this question. If someone was 62 years old and they were thinking about retirement because at that point they're eligible to retire, how could they increase their retirement income by 30%? Now that's a lot. 30%, that's a lot. And they said, you know what? There's actually 3 ways that people could do it. The first way is they could work 3 more years. Instead of retiring at 62, work until you're 65. And then save 25% of the annual income during those last 3 years or those additional 3 years of working. Work 3 more years and save 25% of what you earn during those 3 years. Now, guys, 25%, is that a little or a lot to save? That's a lot. So then T. Rowe Price went back and looked and said, well, that is a lot. So how about this? Work 3.5 more years. Add 6 months to that. Work 3.5 years to age 65.5, and then you only have to save 15% of what you earn during those 3.5 years. But there is a third way. Work until age 66. Work 4 more years. And then go ahead and spend any extra money you would have made during those 4 years. Don't even worry about saving a penny. If it helps you to work the extra 4 years, go ahead and spend it on vacations. Spend it on gifts for the grandkids. Spend it on new furniture. Spend it on whatever gets you through the day. Don't even worry about saving anything. Just working those 4 years will increase your retirement income by 30%. Now, how is it possible? If you were going to work 3 years, you'd have to save 25% of your income, or 3.5, you're going to have to save 15%. But just by waiting for 4 years, you don't have to save anything. Well, that's because Claiming Social Security at the right time has the same impact as those additional savings. Now, keep in mind and remember, and we're going to talk about this some more, benefits grow by 8% per year for every year you delay to age 70. But just by waiting, claiming at the right time has the same impact as all those additional savings. And claiming in the right combination can make an even bigger difference, and that's what we're going to look at today. Claiming at the right time and in the right combination to increase your monthly check by 60%. So how do claim and suspend and claim now and claim more later work? Well, in essence, what they do is they both do two things. They both leverage the power of patience, and the power of patience is what we just looked at with the T. Rowe Price study, just waiting. Just being patient makes that big a difference. But they also both leverage the spousal benefits that are built into Social Security. See, remember, Social Security was conceived at a time when most women didn't work. And so they didn't want to penalize stay-at-home moms. And so they said even if a woman doesn't work, she's still eligible for a benefit off of her husband's work record. It's not the same as his benefit. It's reduced. It's reduced by half. But that's the spousal benefit. And those are still intact because, by and large, we still live in a world where even though I would say most women work, a lot of them only work part-time so that they can stay at home and raise kids. Or maybe they don't always work part-time, but they take part-time, they cut back to part-time when they start a family. Or maybe they take time off because of pregnancy and kids so they don't advance as fast, so their work records aren't as robust as their spouses. And Social Security doesn't want to penalize people for that. So they do allow you to claim a spousal benefit or your own benefit, whichever you prefer, whichever is higher. So both of these strategies are going to leverage the power of patience, and they're both going to leverage the spousal benefits, and we'll look at some unique things that kind of have come out of that. And I think the easiest way to look at it is to look at an actual example. So we're going to look at an actual example. Sometimes you're going to hear these strategies referred to in journals or other places as switch strategies. And the reason they call them switch strategies is because you're really switching back and forth from one benefit to another, from your benefit to a spousal benefit, maybe back to your own, something like that. So if you ever hear people talk about switch strategies, that's what they're talking about. Claim and suspend, claim now, claim more later. So let's just take a married couple and see how these would work. Let's just call our married couple John and Mary. Let's say they're both age 62, so they could retire. They could start collecting Social Security. That's the earliest age at which you're eligible. And they're wondering, well, when should we retire and start collecting Social Security? Now, John is scheduled to receive $2,200 at full retirement age. So he's not full retirement age yet. 66 is full retirement age. Now, if he took early, he could get a benefit, but it would be reduced. Reduced because he's going to be collecting longer. Social Security tries to make sure that the calculations, if you take early, that it's still actuarially fair, that if you actually live to your life expectancy, you wouldn't take less money or make less money in your lifetime just because you claimed early. But they always calculate your benefits off of full retirement age. So $2,200 is what he would make at his full retirement age. Mary is scheduled to receive $800 at full retirement age. And typically when people come in, they have an idea of what they're expecting from Social Security. Social Security mails out or used to mail out these benefit statements every year, and they do that when you get really close to retirement. And you can go out online and find out what your expected benefit is. But this is what they would be looking to expect. So let's take a look at the first scenario. What if they both went ahead and claimed right now? Well, at age 70, their combined benefit for both of them would be about $33,675 per year. And that would grow every year because Social Security, unlike most sources of income, is adjusted for inflation. So that's what they could expect if they claimed right now at age 62. What if they waited to full retirement age? Well, if they waited to full retirement age, they could expect $44,900 at age 70. Now notice, that's about $11,000 more per year just by waiting. And remember that T. Rowe Price study we looked at? That's what they were talking about. Their income bumped up by 30% just by waiting. Now, these two strategies, these two scenarios that we just looked at, those are things that come easily to mind. Those are things that John and Mary would have considered without any help or advice from anybody. Those are the no-brainers. Go ahead and claim early at 62 or wait to full retirement age and claim then. But here's where we get to flex our advisor muscle a little bit because we're going to give them some alternatives. And remember, we said there were two strategies that generally married people who have yet to file or who have filed but haven't, it's been less than 12 months, can take advantage of. And one of them was claim and suspend. So I want to look at claim and suspend. Now the way claim and suspend works is we're going to say that Mary goes ahead and claims her benefit early at age 62. And sometimes, you know, we want to at least take a look and see what does it look like if the wife claims early, because generally, though it's not always the case, who's expected to live longer, the husband or the wife? The wife.
Yeah.
The wife.
So we're going to have her go ahead and claim early. And at age 66, John's going to file and suspend so that Mary can switch to her higher spousal benefit. Okay, and then at age 70, John's going to collect his benefit. So Mary starts with a lower benefit. When John turns 66, she's able to switch to a higher spousal benefit. And then at age 70, John's going to go ahead and turn on his even higher benefit because he waited and his benefit has gone up. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we get into things. I'm not sure that we're going to go into all the details on this call because it gets a little bit complex. But I want you to see what happens when they do claim and suspend. What happens to their income at age 70?
Goes up
Even
a lot.
if they'd waited, yeah, it jumps up. Even if they'd waited to full retirement age, which is what a lot of people think that's what I should do because that's going to really give me the biggest bang for the buck, they could increase their annual benefit by $11,000 a year. And that's a lot. Now, I also want to look at another...
What happens to
go
Mary
ahead.
What happens to Mary when her husband turns on his income at age 70? She gets
When her
hers,
husband
goes back to hers.
She could switch back to hers if she wanted to, or she could keep the spousal benefit, and she'll do whichever is higher.
And then he's still entitled to his benefit at age 70.
Yep, and he's still entitled to his benefit at age 70. So that's claim and suspend. Claim now, claim more later. That's the other strategy that we're going to look at. In that strategy, we're going to go ahead and have Mary file for her own benefit at age 62. Again, because presumably she'll live longer. And at age 66, John's not just going to file and suspend. He's going to go ahead and file and claim a spousal benefit off Mary's work record. So he's going to be collecting some money, not a lot because she doesn't have a very high benefit, but a little bit while he's waiting to turn to age 70, at which point, guess what he'll do? Switch to his own higher benefit. That's why it's called claim now, claim more later. He's going to claim a spousal benefit right now, collect that spousal benefit for a while, and then claim more later, his higher benefit, when he turns age 70. And that's going to increase their income even a little bit more. And now I'm going to look at one more scenario, and it's a variation of claim and suspend. And here's how it's modified. Remember in the original scenario 3, claim and suspend, I had Mary claim her benefit at age 62. Well, I'm just going to look and see what happens if Mary waits until age 66 to claim her own benefit. That's the only thing that's changed. Okay? And then John's going to file and suspend so that Mary can claim a higher spousal benefit, and then John's going to go ahead and claim his own benefit at age 70. Now look what we've done. We've gone from $44,900 a year if they'd waited to full retirement age up to nearly $60,000 just by doing a little planning. Now, let me stop here for a second and answer a question that always comes up when I'm talking to advisors. What advisors will say is, well, how'd you come up with those strategies? Why those? Why not others? And, you know, the truth is, the answer is because those are the ones I thought of. I mean, I'll always try at least 2 more strategies. I'll always look at what if they retire now, what if they wait till full retirement age. And then I'll always look at claim and suspend and claim now, claim more later. So I'll always be looking at 4 strategies. And then I might try any variations on those 2 if I can think of any. If I can't, then I won't. And you might be sitting there thinking, you know, what about this? There might be others that you would want to try and see what comes of them. And you use a calculator to do these, so it spits out the answer. You can throw in any scenarios or any combination of scenarios that you want, and the calculator will tell you whether or not they make sense.
So when you're saying calculator, you're talking about a piece of software.
Yes, I'm talking about a piece of software. I'm not talking about a financial planning calculator or a simple add and subtract calculator. I'm talking about a calculator designed to calculate Social Security benefits. So
it's actually pretty easy to use that calculator or not?
It's actually pretty easy to use that calculator.
Okay.
And you know what? If people have an interest, I'll teach people how to use some of the calculators that are out there.
And this calculator will be found where?
Well, I personally use Horse's Mouth software. They have a program out there called Savvy Social Security Planning that come with some spousal planning calculators, and so that's what I use. I use it because they came out with it early. I got comfortable and familiar with it, and I like it. There are other calculators that are out there. I think in the Investment News article that I quoted, they talked about another company, Social Security Timing or something like that. AARP has a calculator on their website. Now, I don't like that one as much because you can't do the kind of comparisons that we just did, that I just showed you. It'll only take the numbers that you put in and spit out what it tells you is the best one, and I'll tell you why later, why sometimes it helps to do a little bit of a comparison. But AARP has a calculator. There are tons of companies that have calculators. I'm not saying Horse's Mouth is the best, it just happens to be the one I use, but they all do pretty much the same thing. Okay? And this call isn't really the what calculator is that and where do you get it and how do you use those numbers in a meeting kind of call. It's I'm sure we'll end up doing all of those calls if people express an interest in learning more about Social Security planning. But this is really kind of an overview so that you can see what Social Security strategies are out there. And does
Actually,
it even
this is
make
a hot topic right now.
Yeah, it is a hot topic. And And so the question that you have to ask yourself is, does it make sense for me to know these before we go any further? Because it is a hot topic.
The next question that comes to my mind is, as I'm sitting here in the client's seat thinking for them, well, what if, and here's the question we always get, or at least I get, what if Social Security isn't around by the time I get ready to do this? Because they're saying it's broke.
Sure. Well, okay. That's a good question. Let's talk about that for a minute. Everything that I've heard and all the discussions that I've ever, and I do a lot of research on Social Security. So, I mean, I go from the things that are in the news to digging a little bit deeper. And I would tell you that everything that I've seen, everything that I've heard, everything that's being discussed right now, nothing is being said or written to make me think that Social Security will go away. On the other hand, nothing that's being said or written doesn't make me think that it won't change, and when I say change, I mean be reduced sometime in the future. Now, I don't know if the reductions are going to apply to everybody, or if they're just going to make them apply to the people who have yet to retire, but just let's play devil's advocate and say they're going to apply to everybody. And it's going to be much worse than things that are being written or talked about right now, because right now what they're talking about doing is raising the retirement age. They're also talking about means testing, saying that people who earn a lot of money don't get as many benefits. But let's say they were to say, you know what, everybody's Social Security across the board gets cut by 30%. Sorry, that's the way it is. Even if you're collecting benefits now, your benefits are going to go down by 30%. Now, that's draconian. That's worst case scenario. So let me ask you this. If you were looking at getting $1,000 per month and they said you're going to have to take a 30% cut in benefits, what would your benefit go down to?
A lot less than I'm making now. Hence, if I go with
it'd go down from $1,000 to $700 a month. But what if there was a way that you could make that be $1,600 a month? Now, you're still going to have to take a 30% cut in benefits.
Gotcha.
So you're going to end up with $1,100 per month instead of $1,600 per month after we knock off 30%, because that's what we have to do to balance our budget. Does that make this less important or more important to do?
More important.
Yeah, I mean, if they do some of the things that they're talking about and some of the things that people hear, this doesn't become less important. This becomes way more important. This doesn't become a nice thing to do. It becomes something that you have to do in order to kind of preserve whatever you can get. So that's a good question. So does it make sense to know about these strategies? Well, let's look at the results real quick. Where do they get more annual income? Modified claim and suspend. And as a result, they're going to get more lifetime benefits. If you're making more per year, they're going to make more over your lifetime. And more importantly, look what happens to the survivor's benefit. If you notice, at age 80, in every one of these scenarios, the income drops. Why? Because I put in a hypothetical that between age 80 and 85, John dies. And now Mary's all alone. Would Mary rather have $49,800 if she waited to full retirement age, or $65,700 by taking your advice? I mean, that's a huge difference. So let me ask you this.
Just looking at this.
Well, the question becomes, can people get this information anywhere else?
Can they go to the Social Security Department? Could your mom, Jeff, have gone to the Social Security Department and said, hey, what would be the way that I could pull out the most money out of this?
No, absolutely not. And here's why. Social Security is barred by law from giving advice. So they can't by law tell you, you shouldn't do that strategy A, you should do strategy B or C. That's
Really?
what's going to be best for you. No, they can't do that. The only thing that they can do is answer your questions.
If I do this, what will
Wait.
happen?
Yeah, if I retire at age 66 and file and suspend and have my wife claim a spousal benefit and then wait to age 70, what will happen? But you know what? We just looked at investment news, and over 70% of people don't know what.
What questions to ask?
They don't even know what questions to ask.
They don't even know if there's different strategies out there.
Exactly. So Social Security cannot be proactive and give people advice, and I think it's because there's a liability issue there. They don't want somebody in the Social Security office telling somebody, this is what you should do, and then it doesn't work out, and then they're liable for the advice that they dispensed. So they're not going to get into that game. They won't do it. And they've codified it by law. They can't.
So does this
Well, can they
work
get
as
this
well?
from...
Does this work as well when you have spouses who have, say, different in ages by 5 or 10 years?
Well, the bigger the age gap, the more difficult it becomes to coordinate benefits, but it's still possible. But I would say the difficult level goes way up. If you're talking about spouses, it's still pretty easy if they're 5 years or less. It gets harder between 5 and 10. It gets really hard after 10.
You know, Jeff, you mentioned the idea that what if people who have significant assets for retirement that don't look at Social Security and go, well, heck, I really don't need it. How's this benefit them? Well, I could see how you could talk to somebody easily who has, $800,000-900,000 in their IRAs and say, look, let's draw on the IRA before taking Social Security, and then wait till a later time to draw on Social Security, and then reduce the amount that we're drawing on the retirement accounts.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that too. And ironically, wealthy people are even more interested in this.
I know.
as well.
I'm going, how do I present this? How do I show this? Because I can think of the top of my head right now, 10 opportunities.
Right. And we all think, even the wealthy, and especially the wealthy, in my experience, feel like we earned Social Security. We deserve it. So yeah, I want it, and I want as much as I feel like I have coming to me. And they can't get this advice from the Social Security Administration. Can they get it from an estate planning attorney?
Nope.
Not generally.
CPA?
Nope.
Nope.
How about other advisors, financial advisors?
Not many.
Not many, hardly any. And so would this set you apart from your competition in a way that's meaningful to people?
Absolutely.
It gets people's attention, and it gets them in your office.
10,000 baby boomers turning 65 every day.
Right. But here's the question, here's the million-dollar question. Can Social Security planning make you money? Or is it a loss leader? Because if you tell them, hey, here's what you have to do to get this increased benefit. You have to go down to Social Security. You have to tell them you want to do this. You have to fill out this paperwork, and then you're going to get this big fat check that you weren't going to get before. Does that really make you any money?
Sure it does.
Well, and it can, and it absolutely does. I mean, we talked earlier
I mean,
that
not
when
up
to
front,
take...
but dead gum.
Well, and I would argue that it almost does up front, and here's why. When we talked, we said when to take Social Security is a big decision because it's a big part of people's retirement. Up to 40% of what they can expect to receive in retirement. So then the question becomes, where does the other 60% come from?
Their assets.
And where does it...
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, most people, it either comes from pension or their savings, and most people don't have pensions anymore, and we're going to see fewer and fewer people with pensions. And now, thanks to you, they know how to maximize 40% of their income, and now what do they want to know? What do they want to turn their attention to? How to maximize the other 60%. And do you make money when you do that kind of planning? See,
You do it right.
Social Security almost always leads to income planning for a couple savings and investments.
People are always going to need income.
Yeah. And you know, one of the great things about these strategies, and we're going to talk about this maybe at a future call, is just because they're waiting to file for Social Security doesn't mean that they're still working. A lot of times people will say, well, yeah, I can see that waiting to age 70 would make a big difference and that it would make sense. But I don't want to work to age 70. I want to enjoy my retirement. I want to retire now. I'm 65, 66. I don't want to work till I'm age 70. We can show them how to leverage their savings and investments to be able to retire and still collect some money while they're waiting to get that big benefit. And we'll talk about that later. Now, where did these strategies come from? Well, ironically, these strategies have always been available. But in 2009, a professor at Boston College the Carroll School of Management, her name was Alicia Munell, and with the help of some graduate research assistants who were working on some PhDs in economics, they published a paper called Unusual Social Security Claiming Strategies, Costs and Distributional Effects. Now, this is obviously an academic paper, and Mickey, this would be a great place to go and really dig into these strategies, because it's really considered the holy grail of Social Security strategy papers, and it really popularized the idea of doing some basic planning to get the biggest Social Security check possible. And since then, the strategies that they talked about, now free loan is in there, and you have to keep in mind free loan is gone. But since then, the strategies that they talked about have been written about in the New York Times. It's been written about in the Wall Street Journal. It's been talked about on CNN. It's been in Money Magazine. It's been in Investment News. We just quoted one of the articles about it in Investment News. T. Rowe Price did a study and recommends it to people. The Prudential did a study and recommends it to people. AARP has since gotten a whole, talked about it a lot, and they've even dedicated a whole section of their website to these strategies.
And even so, only 70% of the people still don't know these things exist. Why, guys?
Don't know what questions to ask.
Well, it's esoteric. It's hard. It's difficult. I guarantee you I could go into anybody's life and save you guys a ton of money on all sorts of different things, but most of us take the what? The hard route of studying all these things and figuring it out and finding the best thing, or we take the easy route?
Easy route.
And this is, people look at this and say, Jesus criminy, I don't want to become an expert on Social Security planning. I don't want to know all this stuff, so I'm going to do either take it at 62 or take it at 66, and they leave it there. Their eyes glaze over. The consumer's eyes glaze over when they look at this stuff. So this is something that you can really provide a huge benefit. And you know what? Most advisors' eyes glaze over when they see this stuff, too, because it ain't sexy. It requires a little mental acumen. It requires you to to hit the books a little bit to understand this stuff. And guess how many advisors want to do that? It's not sexy like talking about rates of return. But Jeff just showed you we're talking about huge rates of return here. We're talking about almost doubling people's money, and people's money going up by 30% every single year, guaranteed. Where else can you give your clients a 30% increase in their return by 30% guaranteed every year? But most advisors, it's boring. It requires some study. It requires all the things that advisors are not known for. So this is a real way for you to set yourself apart.
And all of these places recommended looking into these strategies for all the reasons we looked at, but also some of the things we didn't have time to talk about today. I mean, utilizing these strategies almost always lowers the amount of your own money that you have to spend in retirement, like we talked about. Even if you decide you can't wait any longer to retire, and you know that claiming at 70 is the best thing to do for a lot of reasons, but you don't want to work or you can't work, you still end up spending less of your own money by using these strategies, even if they mean you draw down your own money while you're waiting. And that was what was so revolutionary about Professor Munell's research. And it's something that we'll actually look at on future calls. Also, using these strategies lowers your taxes in future years because Social Security is taxed very favorably. Only 50% of your benefits, up to 85%, are even eligible to be taxed. So it always lowers your taxes in future years. And like we talked about, now that you help them maximize 40% of their income, they want to know how to maximize the other 60%. And it always leads to income planning, which naturally segues into annuity and life insurance sales. And we'll take a look in more detail on future calls exactly how that happens. But just as kind of let me leave you with this from the Prudential. For years, financial services companies have downplayed the role of Social Security in bolstering financial security in retirement. But considering the increased financial risks retirees now shoulder, the tax preferences that Social Security receives, and the income options that Social Security now offers, we would argue that Social Security should play an even greater role in a retiree's financial picture than it ever has before. So guys, hopefully this was helpful, and it gives you at least a... Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I have to jump in here. Guys, there is a way to do Social Security planning where you make no money. And that is when they come to see you, whether it's from the new presentation that we've done that really hooks them on Social Security, or whether it's you've gone back to your prospects and offer this, there is a way for you to do Social Security and planning and make no money, which is they come in, and this is for prospects, they come in, they ask you, how does this work? And we think that if we are smart, and if we show them how smart we are, and if we give them all the answers, that they're going to work with us, and then what do?
Take the information and run.
That's the way you can do this and make no money. So when they come in, this is why our first meeting, the agreement meeting, the scripts are so important. They're so important. We know people are coming in to ask us questions. So this is yet another question we know they want to come in and ask us. How do we increase our Social Security? So if you do the old route where you answer their questions and think that because you're smart they're going to work with you, they're not going to do that. Possession is 9/10 out of the law. They're going to take this information back to the guy who already has the money. So you need to learn these scripts. So when they come in and they ask you these questions, if you follow the scripts, they're not going to be able to ask you these questions. Yet they're not going to know they can't ask you these questions. This is the importance of knowing the agreement meeting scripts. So you do not get caught on the old school of giving them all their answers, and then they'll take that back to their current guy, because then you can work for free. Don't do that. Learn the scripts and deflect them from asking this question, because really, if you think about it, guys, should we be answering this question if we don't know everything about them?
Nope.
Because what are we doing, Ed, if we do that?
We are taking into, we're actually creating a lawsuit for ourselves.
Yes, that's malpractice. You can't answer these questions without knowing everything about them. And the only way you're going to know everything about them, you're going to know everything about them right there in the 1 hour meeting.
Nope. You have to do an x-ray.
Exactly. So you take all the information, then you leave, then you come back with the answers. So you should never be answering these questions the first time you meet with people, because that's malpractice. But you're going to get stuck if you try to avoid answering these questions unless you follow the agreement meeting process as I've laid it out. We've been using that for 10 years, and for 10 years we've had people coming in asking burning questions, and it has worked perfectly, hasn't it, Jeff, to deflect those questions till it's appropriate for us to answer them.
Yeah, and the great thing about Social Security is it almost forces you to follow the agreement meeting script. And here's what I mean by that. Guys, you have to plug this stuff into a Social Security planning calculator. So are you going to be able to do that when they come in for that first meeting?
Nope.
No, you're not going to even know what numbers to plug in.
You're going to need to know. You're going to need to know everything about them before doing this. I mean,
you can't answer.
Here's the crazy thing: is if you're working with the client and you're talking about this, and you're asking the questions now, it's about the idea of Social Security versus just a normal person who is just asking questions to find out if they have assets to work with.
Yeah, and like I said, the great thing about it is without the calculator, you can't answer it anyway, so you're almost forced to tell them why you're not going to answer these kinds of questions in that kind of detail at this particular meeting. But it also, they understand why you need all the information that you need, and intuitively they know this isn't the easiest thing to talk about, that it takes a little preparation and it takes a little research, and so you have to follow the script. You really don't have a choice but to follow the script. So hopefully this gives you a good starting point for understanding what the Social Security conversation is about and whether or not it makes sense to incorporate it into your marketing and your meetings. That's all I have with that. I could open it up to questions.
Yep, I do have a couple of questions. Stephen, I'm going to open up your phone line. I'm not sure what your question is, so go ahead. Are you able to talk? Stephen? Okay. He has his hand up, but obviously we can't get him open. So, and Jim, I'm going to go ahead and open your phone line as well. So can you ask your question?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Perfect.
Yep.
Hello? Oh, hi, guys. Hey, very interesting. Now, do you say you have some type of presentation on the website now, or where do we go to get more on this? What's going to be the process from here on out?
Well, Jeff's given you several resources to use to actually use the calculator to learn more about it. If you Google Boston College Social Security Planning, that report will come up very, very easily for you. And then if you just Google Social Security calculators, you're going to find dozens and dozens of people trying to sell you that calculator, because most of them are not most of the good ones are not free, and they range anywhere from, Jeff, what, $20 a month to $40 a month, or somewhere around there?
Yeah, I mean they're pretty, I think, inexpensive. Some of them you can get on a monthly subscription basis. The one that I buy is $400 a year. So, you know, you can, whatever your budget or whatever your level of involvement, you can find something out there for you. The AARP calculator is free. So there's something for everybody. And if there's an interest in this, absolutely, we'll do calls on how do you spend less of your own money, and what kind of planning do you do to show them that? How do you lower your taxes using Social Security? How do you use the calculators? What are you looking for? How do you present this? We'll absolutely do that. But if you're looking for some quick resources, the Investment News article is a good one this month. The Social Security Claiming Strategies from Boston College is a good paper that's very in-depth, very detailed.
And then also, I think some people are wondering about the presentation. The presentation that tries to hook them on Social Security and the sales software, that's actually a presentation that Jeff and myself put together for my private coaching clients. And so people on Two Objects aren't going to be able to get that as of yet, because it's for the people who actually hire me on a one-on-one basis, coaching basis. But you can easily, just based on what, if you don't want to become a private coaching client, you can easily, just based on what Jeff has presented here, and this has all been recorded, and you can go back to it as much as you want, input this kind of stuff into your current marketing. But the presentation I was talking about is just strictly for my private coaching clients, so sorry about that. But this stuff that Jeff, if you want to do it yourself, just input it into your regular marketing. So, any other questions, Missy?
Nope, that should be everything that we have.
And Mickey, did you say something?
Well, just
Yeah.
if there were, you don't have a series of links that you could send us to that would have. You know,
I'll go ahead and I'll post stuff with the call so that on the replay you'll have access to some of the links that Jeff had mentioned, some of the different studies that Jeff had mentioned. So I'll post that with the call replay.
Excellent. Thank you,
By the
Missy.
way, I think this is a big hot button, and the more we know about it, probably the better we're going to be able to do with our clients.
I totally agree. Thanks, everybody, and thanks, let's see, Mickey and Ed, and who else did we have on there, Missy? Steve?
Glenn was there.
Glenn, super. So thank you guys and everybody for being on the call, and thank you, Jeff, for doing such a great job presenting this stuff, and I'm sure we're going to get a lot of requests for you to go into more depth on this, because I agree with Mickey, this is something that you can really set yourself apart with. So thanks, everybody, for being on the call, and have a great week, and we will talk to you next Monday.